and up.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but it's just you can't, like, I tried to understand where she's coming from, but
Skręć w prawo w zjazd.
There's no there. And when someone says fake news, it's quite genius in its creation, in that it just establishes that what you know and have heard is not true without any evidence to the contrary.
This is maybe my optimistic streak shining through, but I wonder about how some of the principles that I found useful in other areas would work in this world. I can't say I've really tried it, but I know when talking with a friend who's very opposed to vaccinations, I found him more open when I said, listen, I understand that you believe that there are government conspiracies, and I would love to, I know some conspiracy theories have actually come true, right? So I'm not just blanket dismissing them. I'm just trying to figure out how we can be confident that this particular one is true. I said, what's really baffling to me is you have a huge community of independent scientists, many of whom have tenure and can say whatever they want. How would you orchestrate such a complex conspiracy of famously strong-willed, stubborn people who will sometimes not change their minds or admit that they were wrong, even if their careers depended on it? And he couldn't really answer it. And he said, well, maybe that's not a total conspiracy, but it's hard to publish the studies that show the side effects and the dangers of vaccines. And I said, okay, well, let's take a closer look at the evidence there. And I found that on a specific topic like that, just asking him, how does that work? It led to a more open conversation, because at least we could talk about the same reality.
Right.
Is there
same reality is the key.
Yes. Is there any opportunity there, or is it an uphill battle?
At this point, I think it's a sort of ceasefire, only in that, when somebody says that they only are willing to listen to their Sean Hannity, that there's just not a real chance for any. Yeah. But that's sad. Just also a lesson in letting go. Then you just have to you talk about the things what you think what you don't know, and then you don't know what you don't know. And in this case, I don't know how I'd ever be able to reach a place where there's mutuality without really giving up a fundamental sense of who I am. And right. I'm not willing to do that anymore. I've tried for years. There's just only so much sort of recalibrating and pretzeling that you can do to please other people.
Right.
And then you just have to give up.
Yeah, I cannot imagine how hard that must be, and I'm famously bad at letting go.
So am I.
This is one of the afflictions of the agreeable. But
yes,
if we just take this issue as an example, if we could go back to 2015 and we knew everything that we know now, one of the things that I would advocate for is a set of independent standards for how we evaluate our candidate. And I'd say, all right, look, I don't care whether you support Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or anybody else who's running. What you need, though, is an independent set of criteria for what qualifies as good or bad leadership. And if you make that list in advance, you're going to hold yourself accountable. You're going to keep yourself honest for, not then excusing every single thing that crosses the line by moving the line each time. And I think we need to do that across the board, right?
Absolutely.
This is something I've been rethinking. I think that if we had an independent standard for public officials, I'd even set a low bar. I would say, if this person would be fired for their actions if they were running a public company, which is a very low bar, then they probably shouldn't be an elected official anymore.
I think it's really interesting to look at what we're willing to accept from male candidates versus female candidates. Hillary Clinton never, ever would have even been considered if she'd been different spouses. And you talk about quite a bit in the book about the different criteria between men and women and what is acceptable and believable. And that's also another really interesting big part of the book.
I wish I had I wish I had realized this sooner. I think for a long time I naively assumed that the early data I read on all the ways that women are disadvantaged at work, the ways that women have to be that much better in order to get the opportunity to lead, and how that's most often magnified if women also are of color and belong to a double minority group. And I think I just, in part because I wanted to believe in a just world, and I just naively assumed that in the 21st century we finally made progress, and we are now evaluating people on their character and their competence or their contribution, as opposed to a set of identities that for the most part they probably didn't choose. And we are just so far from that reality. I mean, the data are staggering. There was, you know this from the book, but one of the data points that really opened my eyes was a meta-analysis, a study of studies of about 100,000 leaders, just comparing male and female leadership. And in self-ratings, men were more confident. In 360 ratings, when they evaluated by people who were actually qualified to judge their skill, women were rated as more competent. Debbie, do I think that women are inherently more competent leaders than men? No, I don't think any demographic group has a premium on leadership. Do I believe, though, that women had to be that much better in order to land a leadership position, given all we know about the barriers and biases? Yes. And I'm embarrassed that I didn't come across that sooner. If you're married to a bad feminist, I just feel like I was a bad person to not be aware of this and not try to do something about it.
But you have now. I mean, this is something that we're all socialized to feel at a young age, in terms of how we're allowed to extol our virtues, how we're allowed to brag, how we're allowed to have an opinion even. The whole notion of confidence is something that you write about at great length in the book, and that's another part of what I loved so much about reading your book. You write about how there's plenty of evidence suggesting that confidence is just as often the result of progress as the cause of it. We don't have to wait for our confidence to rise to achieve challenging goals. We can build it through achieving challenging goals. So would you say that courage to take that first step is more important than confidence? Because confidence is only going to come after you do that successfully.
I think so. And this was another moment of rethinking for me, because people talk about confidence all the time. And confidence just doesn't appear out of nowhere. It usually comes through experience. And generally speaking, confidence grows when you achieve mastery, when you make progress. Of a cage for people who lack confidence by saying, well, you need to build your confidence in order to go for it. Like, no, you need to go for it, and then the hope is through your learning and through your growth, the confidence will come. And Sarah Blakely had such a good way of capturing this. I asked her a few years ago how she had the confidence to start Spanx when she had no experience in fashion or retail. She'd never applied for a patent before.
We didn't start out with it, but we have it.
Say that again, though. Tell me your definition of confidence again.
The successful repetition of any endeavor.
That's brilliant.
I've thought about it for a really long time.
that is really brilliant, because what's baked into it is you have to do it successfully and multiple times before the confidence comes.
Right.
That's such a poignant way of capturing what's missing from most people's ideas of confidence.
I think the first step is the courage to take that sort of blind faith step into the unknown and not knowing whether or not, sort of like the way baby starts to walk, right? You just sort of, and then you do it. And then if you're able-bodied, you have walking confidence.
Did you watch The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary?
No.
Probably my favorite line in the whole documentary was when the coach, Phil Jackson, said, "We're only successful in the moment we perform a successful act."
Yes.
And it really drove home this idea that confidence comes through repeating success, but also seems like a powerful way of avoiding complacency. And you're saying, wait a minute, you have to get to the repetition, the ability to do this multiple times. And that means tomorrow, if you don't keep practicing whatever's making you successful, you haven't earned that confidence.
Right. Adam, my last question is this. When you started writing Think Again, you thought your goal was to teach the next generation how to change their minds. But you've stated that you now have a different view. You want to help people get all of us into the right mindset about changing their minds. It's less a question of skill and more a question of will. You believe we all have the capacity to think again. We just don't use it enough. So for all of my listeners, what would be the one tip for anyone listening to begin to rethink what they think?
Oh, if I had to pick one, the one that's jumping to mind right now is be careful about attaching your opinions to your identity. The moment that something you believe becomes part of who you are is the moment that it's hard to let it go. And the question always comes up then, well, if my beliefs aren't my identity, then who am I? What is my identity? And I would say, well, I would prefer to anchor identities in values rather than opinions.
Or productivity. That's a whole other conversation.
Yes. Yes.
Which is also really a belief. I'm only as valuable as I produce things.
I mean, that's a great example, right? Well, what's the value there? The value there is excellence or mastery. And who said that you have to do a certain quantity of work in order to be excellent in a given day? You made that up. Right? It's something that too many of us got attached to, probably too young, and then we really internalized it. I am a hard worker. And there are times when I get there by working less.
Adam, this has been revelatory. Thank you so much for helping me rethink so many things I take for granted. Thank you so much for joining me today on Design Matters.
This has been such a treat. Thank you for having me. I'm floored by how thoroughly you read the book and reflected on it, how much homework you did on my background. Can we be friends?
Yes, absolutely. I'd love it. I'd love it. Adam's new book is titled Think Again, The Power of Knowing What You Don't Know. His website is adamgrant.net, where you can find his books and his podcast, Work Life. This is the 17th year we've been podcasting Design Matters, and I'd like to thank you for listening. And remember, we can talk about making a difference, we could make a difference.
Połączenie GPS zostało zerwane.
Well, we can do both. I'm Debbie Nellman, and I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Design Matters is produced for the TED Audio Collective by Curtis Fox Productions. In non-pandemic times, the show is recorded at the School of Visual Arts Masters in Branding program in New York City, the first and longest-running branding program in the world. The editor-in-chief of Design Matters Media is Zachary Pettit, and the art director is Emily Weiler.
I'm a Korean American immigrant and come from modest beginnings, and my amazing parents worked hard to make ends meet and to put me through some really great education, so I wanted to contribute my share.
Za 50 metrów na rondzie trzeci zjazd.
And to the extent I could give back.
Meet Erica Bowman. She's been working since she was 14 years old, selling shoes at an outlet mall. Eventually, she landed in investment management, working her way to senior positions. After reaching those career heights, Erica took a break, and in that time became a stay-at-home mom.
I had a wonderful, wonderful daughter, and she was 18 months at the time that I made the hard decision to file for divorce and embark on being a single mom. I knew that I would be faced with quite a lot of challenges to get back in the workforce, make ends meet, and regain my independence.
Erica found Morgan Stanley's Return to Work program, a 12-week internship aimed toward those who took a career break, especially mothers.
The program was set up in such a way that we had all these fantastic resources. And then more than that, there was just a community and a cohort. And oh my God, does that make a difference when you're coming back to the workforce?
Research reveals that the most important driver of feeling supported by your organization is your immediate supervisor.
The moment that I met my now boss, Chuck, I said, this is the place for me. He was interested in me as a person too, and wanted to know about my situation. And when I did share all of that, and the need for flexibility because of being a single parent, there was not a hesitation of how we would make that work.
we've worked hard over the years to structure the program to really gear towards the success of the participant.
Susan Reed is Morgan Stanley's Global Head of Diversity and Inclusion. She worked with partners across the firm to make that commitment tangible.
One of the things that differentiated the Morgan Stanley program is that from the very beginning, it was always our intention to try to convert as many of the program participants as possible to full-time employees. And we've been successful at that. I mean, roughly 75% of our participants become full-time employees.
Erica didn't just become a full-time employee. In her first year with the firm, she became an executive. She's now the Chief Operating Officer for Global Marketing at Morgan Stanley Investment Management, and it's had a big impact on her life.
For me personally, it's been my ticket to freedom, to get back on my feet in a time that's been really challenging. And I will say that again and again, because of Morgan Stanley and the Return to Work program, the outcomes for myself and my daughter it changed dramatically for the better.
At Morgan Stanley, part of supporting a diverse workforce means recognizing that not all career paths are the same. The Return to Work program is an opportunity for people who have taken a break from their profession to resume their careers with confidence. Learn more at morganstanley.com/return to work.
Okay, I'm going to start with an experiment. I'm going to give you 3 words, and I want you to think of a 4th word that relates to all 3. You might want to grab a pen for this. You ready? All right, here we go.
You ready?
Cheese, blood, print. Okay, did you get it? Did you get blue for blue cheese, blue blood, and blueprint? It's okay if you didn't, and you probably want another one. So how about these 3 words? Way, mission, let. One more time. Way, mission, let. And what's a 4th word that connects the 3? The answer is sub. Get it? Subway, submission, sublet. Look, when my colleagues and I ran this experiment, we
Za 300 metrów na rondzie drugi zjazd.
gave people 4 minutes to solve both of these puzzles. But here's something else we did. We made one group switch between the puzzles every 30 seconds. They would try to solve cheese, blood, print. Then after 30 seconds, they'd switch to solve way, mission, let. And they went back and forth every 30 seconds. Another group got to spend 2 minutes on one puzzle and the remaining 2 minutes on the other. Then there was a third group that got to switch whenever they wanted, at their discretion. So,
Za 200 metrów na rondzie pierwszy zjazd.
which group do you think did the best at finding the answers? The group that switched continually, so back and forth every 30 seconds, forced to do so? The group that switched at the midpoint at 2 minutes? Or the group that switched whenever the heck they wanted? I'll let you know the answer after the talk. The reason I'm asking is that we often have preconceived notions about when aha moments happen. And today's talk shows us that the conditions that get people to their most creative thoughts often don't look the way we expect. I'm Madupa Akinola. This is TED Business. Today's 2016 talk from Adam Grant is about the unexpected habits of original thinkers. Adam is an organizational psychologist and professor at Wharton. And if you want to know what he's been thinking about recently, check out his Work Life podcast from the TED Audio Collective. Or listen to the interview we just posted between him and Debbie Millman. So let's listen to Adam's talk after a quick break. TED Business is supported by the So What podcast from Boston Consulting Group. If you're tired of boring business experts who can't get to the point, this is the podcast for you. Think of it like chatting with a keynote speaker after their speech. You get a ton of knowledge, but in a more relaxed format. British journalist Georgie Frost uncovers the big new ideas that make up our world, from climate to kitchens, technology to travel, and business to the human brain. Follow the So What from BCG wherever you find your podcast.
Za 300 metrów skręć w prawo.
Nie chcę mi
Hi,
się
this is
iść.
Adam Grant, host of the TED podcast.
Wolałbym nie
Worklife.
iść do roboty.
This season, we worked with our sponsor LinkedIn to share amazing stories from their community.
Ale jestem do
Stay
tego
tuned for insight
zmuszony.
on how finding your voice can lead to
Jak
opportunities
niewolnik.
from Andre, who's helping millions of people share their story.
Skręć w prawo. Następnie miejsce docelowe będzie po lewej stronie.